Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cannabinoids and Food and Beverage Market Trends, Innovations, and what the future holds. Having an awesome panel here today. My name is Colby Watkins. I am the founder of the CBD and Cannabis Professional Business Network, largest group on LinkedIn for CBD and Cannabis. Also co-founder of Where's Hemp, as well as co-founder of MedClava. We're going to start here by introducing our rockstar panel. Start right here.
Hey, David McLaughlin, Sati Soda.
I'm Joel Dar from Gattaca, CBD Chocolates.
And I am Carl Craig. I'm the CEO of Botanicor Labs.
And I'm Scott Callahan of Magic Buzz and Collective Hemp Brands.
Thanks, guys. So going to start the panel off today, set the room, talk about what the current state of the industry is for the food and beverage industry. Any of you guys want to take that? The current state of the market. Can you guys hear me? What is the current state?
Now,
now we're there. Hello, everyone. What I want to set the room by talking about what the current state of the market is for the food and beverage space in the cannabinoid world.
Who's going to start? I'll start. What the heck?
There we go.
I'm actually not in that space. We're a laboratory that tests products, so my perspective might be a little bit different, sort of neutral. One of the things we are seeing is certainly people migrating to more edible and drinkable products. We're seeing all kinds of them, and there are a lot of people that are experimenting with everything from bioavailability to drinkability to taste, flavors, all kinds of stuff. And what I will say is that there's a challenge in that there aren't any rules. And the testing for these things has not fully developed yet. So from my perspective, we've got a long way to go. We're sort of in the early stages. There are a lot of people doing great products, but we still have some work to do to make sure that we can test and present those products to the public well.
I think just to comment on the beverage segment, it's obviously exploding. Most people are already aware of that. Not just in CBD and hemp extracts, but just in functional ingredients. So functionally enhanced beverages are becoming very, very popular, taking significant market share while it's still only a couple of points out of the Cokes and Pepsis of the world. Those are huge markets. And so as we bring CBD into those beverages and other cannabinoids for that matter, you really have to look at this as another ingredient in the ingredient profile for a functional beverage. Very few things are going to have much longevity just being, it's just having CBD in. They have to have great flavors. They have to be well balanced. They have to have good mouthfeel. All the things that are just standard practice in product development, beverage development, food supplement development are really key. And just putting CBD on it's not enough.
Thank you. So if I'm a consumer, and I'm a health conscious consumer, and I typically look at a brand and I'll look at what's in the label and what's in the packaging. What am I consuming, right? From a CBD and cannabinoid standpoint, what's something I should know or something I should look for when moving into the CBD and cannabis world? Now, what am I looking for in terms of packaging and ingredients?
The ingredients?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that you have organic ingredients, right? I think that's what a lot of people want nowadays. Non-GMO ingredients. You want to show that there's testing, like we have a QR code that leads to our third-party independent testing, and ideally you want to get a reputable company.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think CBD as a wellness product has to be carried by a wellness carrier. Can you hear me? I said CBD is a wellness product and therefore has to be carried and delivered by a wellness product. So just like our chocolate is minimum and clean ingredients, or David soda, even without the CBD, it's still a great product. And good for you, low in sugar, has other benefits. And when it comes to testing and regulation, I think it gives, it allows us, I mean, it's the other side of the education, because we are trying to educate the market to that this is a good product and safe and healthy and good for you. And those testing and regulation allows us, as you mentioned, with the QR codes to send the consumer directly to the lab test, to the lab result of each product.
Sure.
And so that's the other side of the education that we try to show the market that this is a safe product.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you touched on it briefly, saying USDA certified organic. From a certification standpoint and a food grade standpoint, is there specific certifications that I should look for as a consumer in a brand?
Okay, I'll jump in on that one. So I use this term very loosely. We're in the Wild West, and that is that there really isn't certification yet. States are starting to develop that. I'm going to take you back. History to me is always a great predictor of the future. Way back when, and I was just talking to these guys, when rivers burned and 3 Mile Island happened and Love Canal, there really weren't regulations about what could be in my water. And we had to develop that. We're really at that stage now, and the states are taking that on. So I'll put this out and kind of promote the state of Colorado. They're working very hard at having a set of criteria that you have to meet in order to put these products out. They're very strenuous. They're some of the most strenuous in the country. It's kind of like talking about California's Air Resource Board and the fact that their air emission standards are tougher than anybody else. Colorado right now is working on setting the bar for the most stringent criteria for everything from your label claim. That is, if you say it's got 20 milligrams of CBD, it better, all the way down through what contaminants are in it. In Colorado right now, they're talking about a list of 106 different pesticides that you need to test for to make sure they're not in your product. In Arkansas, they don't have a list. So that's one of the questions that's going to come up is, where did this come from? Because it was in Colorado, I'm going to start to feel comfortable about it. They've got a pretty strenuous list for what has to be tested, what goes on the label claim. But not all of the states are going to do that. So I think that's one of the things that will have to get ironed out over the next few years.
Absolutely. So you feel that as the standards and qualifications develop as a traditional food and drug product, it's going to become more standardized across the United States. And in your opinion, Colorado is kind of headmanning that in terms of setting that standard?
Yeah, I think they're really trying to take a lead. The CDPHE, I don't know if you guys are following the regulations as closely as we are, but the CDPHE passed some new regulations on April 14th for hemp and CBD products that are produced or sold in the state of Colorado. Those take effect July 1st, and we're doing a lot to try to educate people on them because a lot of people haven't even seen it yet, and there are some very strenuous requirements, both for labeling, for testing, stuff like that. What I've heard and what I've talked to the regulators about is they want Colorado to set the bar. They want everybody to look at Colorado and say, that's the place that really started to transform the quality of these products for the consumer.
Awesome, awesome. All right, going to transition a little bit onto the actual raw material form that goes into a lot of these products. So let's just start there from distillate or isolate. What do you guys think in terms of what is appropriate to be putting into these consumer packaged goods? Or both? And the benefits of either one as well as you give your answer, please.
Yeah, we have personally worked with the full spectrum, the crude oil, because we believe in the whole effect and have as many cannabinoids as possible and less processed material. Also, since we work with the crude, then we are very picky about the flavor of that because many times the flavor is not that pleasant. And of course, when you go to distillate, then you get a better flavor, or you can control the flavor. But we rather work with the crude and then test many different products until we find a good flavor one.
Thank you.
I would just add, I think it really depends on the product you're developing, your demographic you're looking to sell to. David's point about using organically grown biomass, having clean extraction, you can still do those things right and then you can put a broad spectrum of 0 THC distillate in your product. You can put an isolate in your product. You can put a full spectrum oil, but it really depends on the category that you're marketing to. You have to be, if you expect truck drivers and pilots to purchase your product, you really should go to a 0 THC broad spectrum extract, whether it's an isolate or an oil. They need that confidence level. Not that they're actually going to necessarily test hot or test positive for their jobs, but just the stigma associated with it might have a fractional amount of THC in it. It could make me lose my job. So I'm not going to buy a product that would allow me to just put myself in that position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A little bit on the actual deliverability when it comes to a consumer product. Have you guys found any particular medium that has the highest bioavailability? In other words, is a chocolate better to intake than a gummy? Is just taking a pill? What have you guys seen as the best and why?
So cacao naturally contain the endocannabinoid called anandamide. It's come from the cacao, and it's also an endocannabinoid produced in the brain. And therefore, we believe that put CBD with cacao, it's like two of the same, and the bioavailability is higher in the body for both of them.
Awesome. Awesome. Anyone else?
Can I have some fun with the whole 0 THC thing?
I'd expect nothing less from the CEO of a testing company.
Let's have that debate.
Because I might as well. I mean,
Like
I don't know. I'm going to take some of the weight off him having to ask questions. So I come at this differently. I'm a scientist. And the consumers are going to have to become educated about this, and it's unfortunate. But I'll tell you right now, there's no such thing as 0 THC. Just saying, and you can take it to the bank. Measurements are done so that we can compare your product to some known value. And there's a limit to how low we can go. For example, if I'm sitting here with a telescope, I can read what's on those posters back there. But if I'm looking with my glasses, I probably can't see much of it. There's no rules. If I said, you know what, I'm looking with my glasses, I don't see any THC. That's allowed, and I can say that's 0. Some of the things that these rules are going to set is how we talk about that. So, for example, when you see 0, and I understand this is a consumer thing, right? The consumers want to see 0, and I look at that and I go, it's less than something, but less than what? And that's what I really want to know is it less than 5 parts per million, 2 parts per million? Because I know it's not 0, and how do I know that? I'm a lab that I can't see 0. There's no way to see 0. So again, as consumers, you guys get thrown into the middle of that because we want to sell product, and the product says 0, and I get that, and then I come along and go, well, wait, it's not really 0, it's close to 0.
Yeah, and we've had this debate for years, not necessarily Bill and I, but the industry has. There's a number of decimal places beyond that point that says I'm 0.03, I'm 0.3, I'm 0.03, I'm 0.0003. At some point, there is still a number out there, as you've stated. I still find a full spectrum oil is the most robust cannabinoid profile, the most genuine representation of the plant. But we still need to get to some definition of what 0 means so the marketplace, the consumer, has a comfort level that says, I can buy that product and not test positive and lose my job. So yeah, I agree. I think we need to get to some sort of standardization and some sort of conventional wisdom, I guess, around it that then the consumer's comfortable with and the lab is comfortable with, that we can say there's effectively no THC in that product.
Yeah, and it's coming. I totally agree, and it's coming. What I will say is there are places that are a little ahead of us. So the Japanese Cannabinoid Association we work with, and they've set it at 10 parts per million. So that's 0.0001%. And they've got to say to claim that this is T-free or THC-free, it's got to be below that. That's achievable. It's achievable in the lab, and we can do that. But they've kind of set that bar, and unfortunately, we're just not there yet. We need to set that bar. It helps you guys, because then you know what you're shooting for. Otherwise, it's, well, I used this lab and I got this result. I'm going to call it 0 because they couldn't see it. So there's some development there.
Well, just picking up off of that, would you agree then, obviously Japan does have that high standard and their material traditionally has to be made out of stock and stem. That's also most likely the reason that Japan doesn't use any broad spectrum distillate, right? They're only going to use most likely isolate to avoid the repercussions of not hitting that 0.001 standard. Would you argue, though, in terms of getting the full body of a cannabinoid profile, which has been seen to do the entourage effect, would you argue that that's the best form to deliver a product's usability? Or the other side of that is kind of like Japan's methodology. We're just going to use CBD isolate to be adverse risk of the total THC content. Any comment on that?
It's one of you producers.
Yeah, you guys want to?
Go ahead.
It was too long question. What's the question?
If you went to isolate, right, you got rid of all of the other cannabinoids, flavonoids, all that
What?
stuff.
I'll rephrase the question. Is there an advantage to having a full body profile within an ingredient, in other words, the entourage effect, or having just a traditional CBD isolate in your whatever you're selling, in your food and beverage?
Well, if the only concern is the THC or to get to 0 THC, the second level of a product will be the THC, the broad spectrum, which is THC free. I don't know how free it is. I cannot tell. I mean, that's why we tested with you. But that will be the closest thing to a full spectrum without the THC.
Sure.
Now, the other thing that you might like to play with is the terpene profile, because if you want to control the flavor or make it stronger or less, or with this profile or another, then you can also play with that. But that's playing too much.
Thank you. All right, going to shift gears again here and just kind of pick your brains on fun and new innovative products that you guys have seen, right? We've seen tinctures, we've seen chocolates, we've seen gummies. Have you guys seen anything new, and I'm sure you have, new and interesting? If you could tell us what that product is that you've seen, and then if you could tell what that product was made from, either an isolate, distillate, crude, oil. Start here.
Other products I've seen.
Yeah, no, any fun and innovative product that you've seen.
Oh,
like
I mean, there's lots of great beverages out there, which is cool. But I've seen jelly beans.
Sure.
Yeah, lots of great candy. Obviously, Joel's chocolate is my favorite.
Toothpaste,
it's pretty cool how
mouthwash.
Mouthwash, toothpaste. Yeah.
There's, the claim is, it's not a claim. The presentation of the product said is that there's anti-inflammatory properties in the CBD, which helps prevent gum inflammation. None of these things that I'm aware of have been tested and proven, but I think there's a lot of that anecdotal evidence that we all ride on in this industry right now that says it has shown effectiveness as an anti-inflammatory. So why wouldn't, if you put it on your gums, it would provide some anti-inflammatory properties. We make a sun care line called Purif that is reef-friendly sunscreen and after-sun lotions. You can't put an SPF on a cannabinoid product yet, just due to federal regulations. So we put CBD in the after-sun lotions, and then just plain hemp oil in the SPF, the sun protectant lotions, I guess, and lip balms. But I think you're going to see CBD in ubiquitously in almost everything, because it's like a vitamin C. It's like, as the price of it commoditizes, it becomes more understood, and the ingredient becomes more accessible just from a cost standpoint. It'll be in hundreds of thousands of products at minimum.
Thanks. What other cannabinoids excite you from a use standpoint from what you guys have seen? CBG, CBN, Delta 8?
CBN. I mean, Delta 8, for all the reasons that we're all aware of, but it's just a natural sleep aid. I think CBN is the most compelling, most aligned use of the cannabinoid that hasn't already been used in CBD. with something that we're all aware of, we're cognizant of. It's rampant, particularly in the U.S., with sleep deprivation, anti-anxiety properties that you do get from CBD as well. But I think CBN is, to me, the most compelling. I don't sleep very much, so I really enjoy CBN. But I think that's.
I'm going to throw out a couple of things. I'm going to combine the last two questions because we're a lab, so we see everything, and I can tell you that the number of product types and profiles is exploding. So I agree. We see people trying to put CBD, CBG, CBN, whatever the cannabinoid is, in everything. We get socks.
Yeah.
People send us socks.
Pizza sauce.
I'm like, okay.
Fabrics.
That makes my feet feel better. I don't know.
Well, it
I'm
might
not
be
gonna,
transdermal.
Yeah,
You never know. You might get some.
That's right. We had somebody ask if they could send us a mattress once, and I said, no, that's too big for us, so we didn't take it. But we see it in a whole lot of things. Here's my caution to the users, all right? And I'm going to use a real-world example. Do you guys, any of you guys sell coffee, CBG coffee or CBD coffee? You do?
Yeah.
You sell coffee. All right. So I'm gonna put him on notice so that he knows that he's got to be careful. These are organic molecules, okay? And we've seen time and time again, not everybody, but a number of people where they say, okay, I've put my CBD in with the coffee grounds. Coffee grounds are a great organic absorbent. They love organic things. And we've figured out how to get caffeine out by brewing it hot. But you know what? When you brew hot grounds with CBD in it, the CBD likes the grounds a lot better than the hot water. So it stays there. We've had this happen time and time again, and people are like frustrated. They're like, wait a minute, I'm making this great CBD coffee or whatever it is, and you brew it and there's no CBD in it. There are ways to overcome that. So it's not an impossible task. But again, for the consumer, you have to understand, what does that label claim? It could very well be that there's 1,000 milligrams of CBD in that pound of coffee, and you're going to get exactly none of it. But you have to be aware, and that's some of the stuff that'll come along, is that education for the consumers, and then you can select the products that really do work.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit that. Oh, did you want to go?
Yeah, just a short thing. We don't know enough yet about the newer, smaller cannabinoids like CBN, CBG, and so we either can trust deep research or we try it on ourselves. And personally, we didn't get too much result yet, nor any deep research about this, so we still don't put it, we don't sell it yet.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that a little bit. You mentioned 1,000 milligrams of CBD, and if I'm taking it in coffee, I'm going to get none of them. How do I know what the appropriate dosage is for CBD and then that additional cannabinoids that are in the products? How do we know as a consumer what the appropriate dosing is?
That's a loaded question.
I know that is.
It's start low, go slow from back in the THC days. You don't have the potential negative effects that the Start Low, Go Slow campaign was started on. But I do think it's really a trial and error by your own personal biology, biorhythms, how you process the cannabinoid. It's the same as THC in a manner that, I've never had a high tolerance for THC. I can admit that and still feel manly about it. But I've met numerous people that are not near my size, and it's not just from years of smoking marijuana. They just have a different tolerance for it. Small, petite females taking 1,000 milligrams of THC. I don't know how you'd survive that. I'd be sitting in the hospital just in a nice dark room being attended to. But I think, and Bill can probably attest more to this, but I think there just isn't that clarity yet, even as understood as alcohol is. It has different manifestations and different physiologies, but not near the differentiation that in different physiologies that cannabinoids do.
So just to follow
So that
up.
was, did I duck the question fair enough that it's a non-answer?
Yeah, no, it was a great answer to a pretty loaded question. So I figure I'll follow up with another loaded question. When will the FDA make a broad regulation so we can put CBD and cannabinoids into food and beverages legally across the United States federally? Any comments on that?
The longer it takes, the better.
So you're saying that from a standardization standpoint, or elaborate a little bit more on that if you could?
No, from the point of view of a small company who are trying to grow, and once it will be regulated and legal, so the big companies will go into the market, and so the longer it takes, the better for us.
How about from a standardization standpoint, what needs to happen for the federal government to make a ruling like that?
Let me throw out that I think the federal government's moving pretty slowly on this, and it's frustrated the states. So the states are kind of stepping in. And that's where I said earlier, Colorado is trying to come up with and treat CBD and the other isomers as a food product. So it's like a dietary supplement, and you have to treat it like that. That's at least a start. So Colorado has already started down that path. You have to have labeling that meets nutritional supplement labeling requirements, testing, and so forth. I don't know that the feds are going to react quickly. I think the states are the ones that are moving the quickest right now.
Right, so kind of determined by each individual state. Okay, in terms of what I'm looking for when I'm actually going to go out and let's say I want to create a product, or I am a small business and I want to get into the market, what's something that I should be looking for? And for those people out there who are trying to start a small business or get into the CBD space, what do I need to be cautious of when interviewing a white labeler or looking at products or looking at ingredients in a product? Any business owners out there want to talk about your road when you went to interview and come out with your brand, or what you guys went through?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, it's finding something that, for me, it was something that I wanted to create something that I wanted to consume.
Sure.
And then, you got to spend the money for the branding and the design. And then, we hired a PhD food scientist to help formulate. Like, we really wanted to get it right. And then it's, how do you get it to market, right? How do you get it out to the customers? And, it's not just throwing a website together and, hoping it flies out of your storage. It's, there's a lot to it, a lot of moving pieces. We brew in 2 different locations in the country, lots of raw ingredients, aluminum can shortages. I mean, there's just, you want to definitely get consultants, people that are not financially vested in your success or failure.
Sure.
And so they really can look at like the whole picture of what you really want to do, and be like, and hopefully help steer you in a way that'll work. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is not a paid political announcement, right? But from the lab perspective, it's really important. It doesn't matter who it is, that you get to know them and you work well with them. I'll give you a real example. This happened very recently, where we have somebody here in Colorado that's making products. Now, this is on the THC side, not CBD side, but they're great products, but they were having a lot of trouble with the formulation and seeing how much product or what the homogeneity of their product was. We sat down for hours to try and work through that with this manufacturer so that they would have a good product. Laboratory work, I hate to say it, it's not turnkey, it's not easy. You don't just say, here's my sample, give me the result. Getting to know the lab and understanding that you can bring your problems to them is critical. They're a great source of good information. So I said it wasn't paid political, but it is paid. I mean, come on, I'm from a lab. But it's an important element, I think, to getting good products out, because then when you do have a problem, you call the lab, you go, what's going on? And you guys work together to solve the problem.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, for us, it was pretty much a natural extension, because we are chocolate makers to begin with. We make bean-to-bar chocolate here in Colorado with minimum ingredients, clean, very good one. It's another brand though. We have it for 5 years, and 3 years ago we said, when the whole CBD hype was around us, and we said, well, we have a great chocolate, why not put CBD in it and make it as a more pleasurable way to consume CBD. And not that there is only one way to have it, but it can be one more way, and definitely more pleasurable.
Thank you. One more question, then I'm going to open up the floor for questions. From a claim standpoint, what are the do's and don'ts of things you can put on a label and make claims in general from a consumer packaged goods standpoint?
Well, I forget their names, but they're right here in Denver. It's a father-son attorney, and they actually are like two of the best beverage attorneys in the whole country. Not just CBD, like any and all beverages as far as labeling goes.
Sure.
So making sure you have the right attorneys looking over, before you go printing and doing all that, you got to make sure you've got attorneys making sure they're FDA compliant, and yeah. So it doesn't matter what the product is, you got to find the right attorneys for it.
We've used that same father-son team, and I'm drawing a blank on their name as well, but they're fantastic for the U.S. We work internationally quite a bit as well, and it's just you have to source that level of expertise in every single jurisdiction that you go to. And to a degree, for a while here, it was and still is state by state for dispensary regulations and the metric system. On the natural products supplement nutraceutical side, with CBD just being an ingredient, you still have all the same packaging requirements that the FDA makes products comply to in every other category, and you have to abide by those guidelines. You still may have a technically federally illegal product, but you have everything else in line, and it's critical to have all of those pieces in place. Whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Germany is different than France, and France is different than Italy, and they all abide by this umbrella, not the UK anymore, but this umbrella of the EU. But those guidelines are just that. The individual countries still have separate regulatory agencies per country, so you have to be thoughtful of that.
And where does the U.S. stand in terms of that stack ranking from compared to where the UK is at with the cannabinoid market, or Switzerland? I'm talking about the standardization. Where is the U.S. ranked in terms of standardization for an emerging market for CBD versus that of a UK versus that of Germany or Japan, like we spoke about today? How are we different, and what's where do we currently stand?
We're behind. We're well behind. We're well behind the UK. I think Japan's going through the throes of maybe over-regulating for the time being. Sure. Germany did, and we suffered from this. We were the first ones to crack mass retail in the EU. So thousands and thousands of shelves, all of a sudden it gets on the German government's radar, and they decide to wipe the shelves clean of any and all CBD and hemp extract products. That was 2019. They've progressed quite a ways now, and you'll see products emerging back on the DMs, the Rossmans, the Edeka's, the big chains of retail drug and grocery stores. So that in and of itself says they're well ahead of us, because those are ingestibles. The novel food debate is still going on to a degree, but it's pretty much settled that as long as you register your product as a novel food in the UK and the EU, that you can sell ingestibles in mass retail environments. And it's a bit, it's kind of a defining moment in a country when the biggest chain retailers decide that we're on the white enough edge of the gray area that we'll put that product on the shelf. Things are sold online, things are sold in natural product stores, things are sold in to a degree, small groups of convenience stores that wouldn't necessarily pass muster with the regulatory agencies of the country, but it's a small, there's too many of those little individuals or little companies for the government to pursue. But when it hits mass retail, someone's now the tall blade of grass. And I've been that tall blade of grass, and it's really painful. But when you're pioneering a new market like that, if you feel like you've got an edge, you're going to establish first mover advantage somewhere, understand that if the country hasn't progressed to absolute clarity on their regulatory structure for your product, then you have the potential to just get swiped off the shelf. And so adhere to every guideline you can. The UK is, the challenge now is the UK, the places that are the most structured in a regulatory sense are also the most overpopulated with products and brands.
Thank you. So in your opinion, what does the industry need to pave the way for mass retail?
Say again, I'm sorry?
What does this industry need to pave the way to get into mass retail like your big box? What is this industry? What is the
What does this industry need?
Yeah.
Well, David's probably on more shelves than most CBD ingestibles in the country. I would say you could comment on that as well, but it really, clear federal legalization is the obvious one, right? Until that happens, you'll just see people touching the edge of it. You're in more stores, but the big legacy brands of nutraceuticals and supplements are already test marketing. They have their CBD lines already ready. They may not be at Target yet, but they're at a small chain up in the mountains of city markets. They're at a small chain in the Southwest and the Northeast, and they're getting feedback on the product lines. They're perfecting their product lines. So it's already really competitive. It's going to get a lot more competitive once it's fully federally legal. But we shouldn't fool ourselves. The legacy brands, the brands that have been on the shelves for decades, they're ready. So it's just a degree of risk. It's risk tolerance. We're all risk takers by the nature of what we're trying to do. They're not. But that puts us at a competitive advantage now and a competitive disadvantage when that gate drops.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Well, yeah, once the feds say, okay, it's okay to do, however they're going to do it, whether it needs to be a standardized testing or whatever it's going to be. But we're already seeing bigger companies, billion-dollar companies. Molson just started their own beverage here in Colorado.
Yep.
Southern Glazers just started. They're one of the largest alcohol distributors. Constellation Brands, they just started a CBD sparkling water as well. It's happening. These multi-billion-dollar companies, a lot of them are just sick of waiting because they're seeing it happen by all these, us little guys being like, what are we doing? We're not going to wait. So I think, and I don't know if it's going to be an FDA thing. It could be an act of Congress where someone just has enough friends and just like, hey, we just got to push this through.
All right, guys, I'm going to open some questions up for the floor. We have about 7 minutes left. Anyone have any questions? You might have to give a little bit of a yell.
Yeah. We can hear you.
Folks, we will ask if you have questions, please come and line up. Enjoy. Thank you very much.
Hey guys.
Hello there.
Oh, hey, can you hear me? Yeah. Thanks for hanging out today. You mentioned that we need to educate consumers about CBD in the products. What do you see that looking like? Do you think that it's up to each individual brand to do that through their brands, or as the industry as a whole, it's up to us to kind of band together and educate the populace about it? Similar to how sugar does that, to the point where when I look at a can of Coke and I look, there's some ungodly amount of sugar in there. I know that what 50 grams of sugar is compared to 5 grams in a drink. Do you see that as something the industry should do together, or it's up to the individual brands to tackle?
I think we're kind of on our own for now, but it would be great if there was, there are industry associations that help us, but they're not really consumer education associations. They are more industry associations. There are mobile and application platforms. One's called Valid Care that collects a tremendous amount of anecdotal data. There's a number of those platforms coming online. And I think then it's just, then it's going to be clinical testing that's ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. So I feel like it's a longer path.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
question about product testing and consistency. So with Delta 9, you can get a product tested
You're gonna have to
Down
Can you
here,
hear me?
Mike. You're tall.
You're way too tall.
Sorry. I don't know when I can stand up more. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good now.
So I have a question about product consistency with testing. So Delta 9 is very illegal in some states, and you can get a product tested 3 different times and have it be three different results. Is there any way that you've seen that's like a standout way to guarantee product consistency with testing?
Did you hear any of that?
I didn't catch enough. No, I'm sorry.
Come over here.
How can you, oh, excuse me, how can you
Ask it directly
guarantee
to Bill.
You're asking
a
about
consistency in testing? Will you restate her question?
under the legal limit in the product or in the person? Under the legal limit in the product? Okay.
That's a good question to address for them.
I'll
The
repeat the
variability
question
in testing is a good question to address.
All right, I'm going to repeat the question, or try and repeat the question, and then see if I get it right. If I do, then I'll answer the question. The question was, or statement, I send off my product. I'm looking for a level of THC, and I want it to be T-free or low. I send this out to 3 different labs, 3 different times. I get 3 different results. That kind of the statement question? All right. I love that question. Thank you
Great
for
question.
asking it. Because as a scientist, I say, yeah, of course it's going to come back with 3 different results. Analytical science is not exact. It's not like counting pennies. I can't count 100. The thing is, I measure by comparing things to other things, and along the way comes error. And this is something that you guys will see a lot more of, and that is, what is the uncertainty of the measurement? The labs need to tell you what that is, and the labs are not good at it because they don't want you to think they're not good. I will tell you, and I've had this conversation more than any other, when somebody walks up to me, and I was just at the keynote talking to John McKay, and I said, I love having this conversation. I like his 97% isolate better than your 99. Like, what? No, I'm paying for the 99. I go, yeah, but I looked at the measurement on uncertainties, and the 99's plus or minus 15%, which means it could be as low as 85. The 97 has a 6% measurement uncertainty, which means it could only go as low as 93. I'm going to buy the 97 because I know that I'm going to get a better product overall. So I kind of answered a different question, but I did it as an illustration that you guys need to understand there's error in the measurement. How much is there so that you can then look at the data and go, okay, that's close. I'll say it another way. We see this all the time. People go, I didn't get the result I wanted. I thought it was 4 and you gave me 3.9. They're like, we want you to retest it. I go, look, I'll take your money. But if I retest it, remember my 4 is plus or minus, let's say 10%. So somewhere between 0.36 and 0.44 are all the same number. So that's stuff that as a manufacturer, you got to get comfortable with. And I would say, ask the lab, what is your measurement uncertainty? Because you're going to want to know.
Whichever you'd like.
We can give the mic another shot.
Take the mask off.
So my question is, we have a CBD tea, and the tea that we have, we grew the hemp ourselves.
Yeah, come over here.
Come on,
Yeah,
come
maybe.
on up.
I don't know if the mic's working.
So we have a CBD tea, right? And we use the hemp that we grew. We didn't spray it. We used the actual hemp. Now the hemp that we grew was an auto tune. It came to almost 11%, right? So we did the math. We added enough CBD for it to be 30 milligrams a tea bag. When I took it to the test, they ran it 6 times and they couldn't get anything out of it. I don't know if it's because they don't know how to test
Okay, here we go. I'm going to try.
As
and do
fast
you
as possible
justice.
if you could. We're
So
over.
there's a CBD-related product. It's a tea bag, and they've done all the work, calculations to know that my raw material, what I put in the tea bag, should equal 30 milligrams of CBD per tea bag, right? And I take it to a lab, and I get nothing. I get zero. All right, so here's where, and I'm going to go back to my paid political announcement. You got to get to know the lab because, for example, for our lab, we have 15 different ways to look at your products to see if we can get that CBD out and look at it. If I just do one way, I can maybe see yours, but I can't see yours. What you're talking about is extraction. Now I'm going to put this back in. You guys know extraction. You're trying to extract CBD out of the plant. Same thing. I've got to use extraction technology to get your CBD out of your tea bag so that I can analyze it. And probably, if it's us, I'm going to apologize, but okay, it's not us. That's what I'm saying. No,
It's that other company.
sure.
North Carolina.
Yep.
So it wasn't just mine. They were testing another tea also, and they couldn't get anything out of it. And finally, since it's not regulated, I gave up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I wasn't going to pay thousands to get it tested.
I think that you're asking a great question. I talked a little bit about coffee earlier, right? You've got this organic matter. I mean, tea is nothing but oils and organics and, you know, all that stuff. The CBD loves it. And it's probably hard to get it away from it. And that's where they're having, I'm pontificating, I'm guessing that may be the problem. I know you put it in there, but then what you've got to do is work on with them a way to extract it to get that back out to show you that it's there.
All right, guys, I hate to do it, but I do have to cut it. We are 2 minutes over. I want to thank our incredibly knowledgeable panel for coming here today and wish you guys the best of conference. Thank you so much.